7:30 in the morning meant Logan Harrington. I knew it the way I knew the coffee machine would make that weird grinding sound on the second espresso shot. The way I knew Mrs. Linda would order her latte extra hot and then complain it burned her tongue. Routine had a rhythm in this place, and he was part of it. 6 months of mornings, always the same order. Double Americano, black, no sugar. He would stand at the counter, tall and solid, with light brown eyes that looked almost amber in the early sun coming through the windows, and he would ask me about my night. "How were the classes?" he asked that first week, and I was surprised he remembered I had mentioned nursing school. "Exhausting," I admitted, wiping down the espresso machine. "Anatomy exam tomorrow." "You'll do fine," he said, and there was this certainty in his voice, like he just knew. He left a 20 for a $6 coffee and told me to keep it. I thought he was just generous. Then I noticed the way people moved around him. The cafe would get crowded during rush hour, bodies pressed together, everyone jostling for space near the counter. But around Logan, there was always this pocket of air, this invisible boundary no one crossed. And the men, always 2 of them, sometimes 3, in dark suits that looked expensive even to my untrained eye. They never ordered anything. They just stood near the door, watching. I wasn't naive. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I knew what that kind of attention meant. Logan Harrington owned 4 restaurants downtown, a shipping company, and had his name on a construction firm that was renovating half the buildings in the Loop. But money that clean didn't come with that kind of security. Still, it wasn't my business. He was polite, he tipped well, and he never made me uncomfortable. That was more than I could say for most of the customers. "You're thinking too hard," Logan said one morning in late spring. I had been staring at the espresso shot I pulled, watching it separate. "Bad pull," I said. "I'll remake it." "It's fine." He leaned against the counter, and I caught the scent of his cologne, something dark and woodsy. "What's really on your mind?" I shouldn't have answered. I should have smiled and made his drink and sent him on his way. But I was tired. So tired from working the morning shift and then going straight to evening classes and then studying until 2 in the morning, only to wake up at 5 and do it all again. "Just wondering when it gets easier," I said. "It doesn't," Logan said, and his voice was softer than I expected. "But you get stronger." I looked up at him then. Really looked at him. He was probably in his early 30s, maybe 32 or 33, with dark hair that he kept neat, and a face that was all strong lines. Defined jaw, straight nose, the kind of face that photographs well. But it was his eyes that caught me. They weren't cold, the way I expected from someone in his position. They were watching me like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve. "Stronger," I repeated. "Right. You're already stronger than you think," he said. "You're doing this alone, aren't you? No family money, no safety net. How do you know that?" He shrugged. "I pay attention." 3 months after that conversation, Logan asked me to dinner. It was a Tuesday, slower than usual, and I was restocking the pastry case when he came in. Not his usual time. He was in a different suit, charcoal gray instead of navy, and he looked like he had been up all night. "Rough morning?" I asked. "Long night," he corrected. He ordered his coffee, waited while I made it, and then said, "Have dinner with me." I almost dropped the cup. "What? Dinner? You, me, tonight, if you're free?" He said it casually, like he was asking about the weather. "I have class." "Tomorrow, then." I should have said no. I should have kept that professional distance, kept him as the regular who tipped well and made my mornings slightly less mundane. But I was 24 years old, working 60-hour weeks between the cafe and my clinical rotations, and I couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at me the way Logan Harrington was looking at me right then, like I was the only person in the room. "Okay," I said. "Tomorrow." He took me to a place in River North, the kind of restaurant where they don't list prices on the menu, and the host calls you by name. Logan knew the owner, who came out to greet us personally and insisted we try the special preparation they were doing with the scallops. I felt out of place in my Target dress and borrowed heels, but Logan didn't seem to notice. He asked me about nursing school, about why I chose it, about what I wanted to do after graduation. I want to work in emergency medicine, I told him, surprised by how easy it was to talk to him. I like the chaos, the not knowing what's coming next. You like fixing things, Logan said. I like helping people. Same thing, sometimes. He took a sip of wine, expensive red that probably cost more than my textbooks. What made you want to be a nurse? I told him about my mom, how she had gotten sick when I was in high school, how the nurses at Cook County Hospital had been the ones who really took care of her, who explained things when the doctors rushed through, how one of them, Maria, had stayed late on her shift just to sit with my mom during a bad night, had held her hand and told her stories about her own kids until my mom fell asleep. She made me want to be that for someone else, I said. The person who stays. Logan was quiet for a moment, his eyes on mine. Then he said, That's a good reason. We dated for 3 months after that. 3 months of dinners at restaurants I couldn't pronounce, of him picking me up after late shifts and driving me home, of stolen hours between his meetings and my clinical rotations. I learned that he took his coffee black because his father had, that he had a scar on his left hand from a kitchen accident when he was 7, that he read history books before bed and could quote entire passages from obscure texts about the Roman Empire. I fell in love with the way he listened, really listened, when I talked about my day, the way he would show up at the hospital after a particularly brutal shift with food from my favorite Thai place, the way he looked at me, like I was something precious, something worth protecting. I was affectionate by nature, always had been. I would text him during breaks, send him pictures of funny things I saw during my commute. I started keeping an extra shirt at his place, leaving little notes in his jacket pockets. He never complained. He would smile when he found them, pull me close, and kiss my forehead. Your trouble, he would say, but his voice was warm. Good trouble? I would ask. The best kind. I should have known it was too good. Should have known that someone like Logan Harrington, with his empire and his secrets and his dangerous friends, wouldn't want someone like me hanging on his arm, texting him during important meetings, showing up at his office with lunch in a paper bag. But I was young and stupid and in love, and I thought the way he held my hand in public meant something. I thought it meant he wasn't ashamed of me. It was October when everything changed. Cold. The kind of cold that Chicago gets early in the season, when the wind comes off the lake and cuts right through your jacket. Logan had left his tablet at my apartment, some contracts he needed to review for a meeting the next morning. I knew he was at his club, the private one downtown that didn't have a sign on the door. I had been there once before, briefly, and he had introduced me to his security guy, a big man named Frank, who had looked at me like I was a stray cat Logan had brought home. I grabbed the tablet and took the train downtown. It was past 10, and I was tired from a double shift, but I didn't want him to stress about the contracts. I wanted to help. I wanted to be useful. I wanted him to see me walk through the door and smile that private smile he saved just for me. The club was quiet when I arrived. Frank wasn't at the door, just a younger guy I didn't recognize. He waved me through when I said I was bringing something for Logan. I walked down the hallway, past the main room where a few men sat smoking cigars, toward Logan's office in the back. The door was cracked open, just an inch, and I could hear voices inside, male voices, laughing. I should have knocked, should have announced myself, but something made me pause, my hand raised, frozen in the air. You're telling me you spent $5,000 on a necklace? That was a voice I recognized. Callahan, one of Logan's business partners. I had met him once at a dinner. He had cold eyes and a handshake like a vice. It's not about the money, Logan said, and I could hear the amusement in his voice. The same tone he used when he was relaxing, when he felt safe. Then what's it about? Another voice, one I didn't know. Because from where I'm standing, that girl is always around. Every time I see you, she's texting you, calling you. Doesn't she have her own life? My stomach dropped. She's in nursing school, Logan said. She works full-time, and still finds time to show up at your office every other day, Callahan said. I'm just saying, man, doesn't it get old? Silence. I pressed closer to the door, my heart hammering so hard I thought they might hear it. Say something, I thought. Tell them they're wrong. Tell them I'm not what they think. She can be, Logan said finally, and his voice was different now. Lighter. Casual. The voice he used with these men. With his world. A little suffocating sometimes. Laughter. It rolled out from the room like a wave. Callahan's bark, the unknown man's low chuckle. And underneath it all, quieter but unmistakable, Logan's own laugh. Easy, comfortable. The sound of a man agreeing with his friends. The tablet slipped from my hands. It hit the floor with a crack, the screen shattering, and the noise seemed impossibly loud in the quiet hallway. I stood there, frozen, staring at the broken glass. Inside the office, the laughter stopped. I didn't wait to hear if anyone came to check. I turned and walked. Fast, down the hallway, past the smoking men who didn't look up, past the young guy at the door, out into the October cold, where the wind sliced through my jacket and stole my breath. I walked 3 blocks before I realized I was crying. 4 blocks before I stopped. Suffocating. The word played on repeat in my head. All the texts I had sent, asking about his day, telling him about mine. All the times I had shown up with food, with notes, with reminders that I was thinking of him. All the hand-holding, the casual touches, the affection I gave freely because I thought he wanted it. I thought he liked it. He had never once told me to stop. He had smiled. He had pulled me close. He had lied. I took the train home and sat in my apartment, still in my jacket, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed twice. Logan, probably wondering where I was, if I was bringing the tablet. I turned it off. The broken pieces of the screen were still in my jacket pocket. I pulled them out, one by one, and dropped them in the trash. Then I went to bed and stared at the ceiling until my alarm went off at 5. When I got to work the next morning, Logan was already there. 7:30, like always, waiting at the counter. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes. But he smiled when he saw me. "Hey," he said. "You disappeared last night. I tried calling. Phone died," I said. I pulled his espresso shot, made his Americano, set it on the counter. "I needed those contracts," he said. And there was a hint of frustration in his voice. I had to pull the files from my email. It took forever. "Sorry," I said. My voice sounded hollow, even to my own ears. Logan frowned. "You okay?" "Fine." I turned away, started wiping down the counter even though it was already clean. "Just tired." He stood there for a moment longer, waiting for me to look at him. When I didn't, he picked up his coffee and left. I watched him go through the window, watched him climb into the back of his black car, watched it pull away from the curb, and I felt nothing. The crying was done. The hurt was there, a raw wound in my chest, but it was buried under something heavier. Understanding. Clarity. He didn't want me. Not really. He wanted the version of me that didn't ask for too much, that didn't take up too much space. And I couldn't be that person. I wouldn't. I made a decision that morning, standing behind the counter with the taste of copper in my mouth, and Logan's laughter still echoing in my head. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to make a scene, demand explanations, or give him the satisfaction of knowing he had destroyed me. I was going to do something worse. I was going to disappear while standing right in front of him. The first week was the hardest. Logan came in every morning at 7:30, same as always, and I made his coffee with mechanical precision. Double Americano, black, handed across the counter with a polite smile that never reached past my lips. He tried to talk to me, asked about school, about my clinical rotation at Northwestern, about whether I wanted to grab dinner later. I gave him one-word answers. Fine. Busy. Can't. Then I would turn to the next customer, leaving him standing there with his coffee and his confusion. "Are you mad at me?" he asked on Thursday, leaning against the counter in a way that used to make my pulse quicken. Now I just felt tired. "No," I said. And it was the truth. I wasn't mad. I was empty. "Then what's going on? You've been different all week." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a man who genuinely didn't understand what he had done wrong. Because in his mind, he hadn't done anything wrong. He had laughed at a joke with his friends, called his girlfriend a little suffocating in private, and expected everything to continue as it was. He thought I didn't know. Nothing's going on, I said. I'm just busy with finals coming up. You know how it is. He didn't know, but he accepted the explanation because it was easier than pushing. That was Logan's fatal flaw. He was comfortable with easy. When I stopped texting him first, he told himself I was studying. When I stopped showing up at his office with lunch, he assumed my schedule had changed. When I stopped initiating any physical contact, he probably thought I was stressed. And maybe part of him was relieved. Maybe this was what he had wanted all along, a version of me that took up less space in his life. The second week, he started to notice. I could see it in the way he watched me, a crease forming between his eyebrows. He came in earlier than usual on Monday, before the morning rush, when it was just me and the opening manager. "I miss you," he said. And there was something vulnerable in his voice that might have cracked me open a month ago. "I've been here every morning," I said, pulling his espresso shot. "That's not what I mean." "I know what you mean." I finished his drink, snapped the lid on. "I've just been focusing on school. Clinicals are intense right now." "You could have told me that," Logan said. "I would have understood." "There's nothing to tell. I'm still here. You're still here. Everything is the same." But it wasn't the same, and he knew it. I could see him trying to find the problem, trying to identify what had shifted. He started sending gifts to the cafe. Flowers first, an expensive arrangement that made my coworker whistle low under her breath. I took them home and gave them to my neighbor, an elderly woman, who told me they were the most beautiful thing she had seen in years. Then came a bracelet, delicate gold with a small diamond. I returned it the same day with a note. "This is too much. Please don't send anything else." He called me that night. I let it ring 4 times before answering. "Why did you return it?" he asked, skipping any greeting. "Because I don't need it," I said. I was in my apartment, sitting on my second-hand couch with my anatomy textbook open in my lap. The words kept blurring together. It was a gift. Gifts should come from wanting to make someone happy, not from trying to fix something. I closed the book. "Logan, I'm fine. We're fine. I just need to focus on school right now. That's all." "That's not all," he said, and there was frustration bleeding into his voice now. "You won't talk to me. You barely look at me. If something is wrong, just tell me what it is." I almost did. Almost told him I had heard everything. That I knew exactly what he thought of me. But that would have been giving him power. Would have been asking him to explain. To apologize. To try to take it back, and I didn't want his apologies. I wanted him to feel a fraction of what I felt standing outside his office door, listening to the man I loved agree that I was suffocating. "Nothing is wrong," I said. "I really do have to study. I'll talk to you later." I hung up before he could respond. By week 3, Logan was getting desperate. He started showing up at the hospital after my shifts, waiting by the entrance like he had every right to be there. The first time, I walked right past him, pretending I didn't see him standing there in his expensive coat with his hands in his pockets. He called my name, and I stopped because my coworkers were watching. "We need to talk," he said. "I have an exam tomorrow," I said. "I can't do this right now." "Do what? Talk to your boyfriend?" The word boyfriend felt like a knife between my ribs. "Logan, I'm exhausted. I just worked a 12-hour shift. Can we please do this another time?" "When?" "You won't answer my calls. You won't see me outside of the 10 seconds it takes to make my coffee. When am I supposed to talk to you?" I could have walked away. Should have. But I was tired, and he was pushing. And something inside me snapped just a little. "You want to talk? Fine. What do you want to talk about?" He blinked, clearly not expecting me to agree. "I want to know what I did wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why are you acting like this?" "Like what?" "I'm still polite. I still make your coffee. I still answer when you call, eventually. What exactly am I doing wrong?" "You know what you're doing," Logan said, and his voice was low, dangerous. This was the voice he used in business, the one that made people nervous. "You're shutting me out." "I'm giving you space," I said. "I thought that's what you wanted." "Why would you think that?" I looked at him, at this man with his light brown eyes and his sharp jaw and his perfectly tailored suits, and I felt nothing but a dull ache where love used to be. Because you're busy, Logan. You have meetings and contracts and business deals. You have responsibilities. I'm just trying not to be suffocating. I watched the word land, watched his face go carefully blank. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Who told you I said that? He asked finally. Does it matter? Yes, it matters. If one of my guys said something to you, I need to know. No one said anything to me, I said, and it was technically true. They hadn't said it to me. They had said it about me. And Logan had agreed. I just think maybe we both need to focus on our own lives right now. You have your work, I have school. We can still see each other, but maybe with a little more space. Isn't that healthier? Logan stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, I don't want space. I want you. You have me, I said. I'm right here. No, you're not. You're somewhere else. And I don't know how to reach you. Maybe you're not supposed to. I pulled my bag higher on my shoulder. I really do have to go study. I'll see you tomorrow morning. I walked away before he could respond, my legs shaking so badly I thought I might fall. I made it to the train, made it home, made it inside my apartment before I collapsed against the door. But I didn't cry. I had promised myself I wouldn't cry anymore, and I kept that promise. The pattern continued for another month. Logan came to the cafe. I made his coffee. We exchanged polite small talk, and then I moved on to the next customer. He sent texts asking how I was doing, and I responded with brief updates. Good. Just tired. Exam went well. Busy week. Never more than a sentence. Never an invitation to continue the conversation. He tried to make plans, and I had legitimate excuses. My clinical rotation had moved to night shifts 3 days a week. I had picked up an extra morning at the cafe to cover rent. My study group met on weekends. All of it was true, but it was also a wall, carefully constructed brick by brick to keep him at a distance. I could see it wearing on him. The shadows under his eyes got darker. He started coming in looking rumpled, his tie slightly askew, his hair not quite as neat as usual. Frank, his security guy, gave me a strange look one morning, something between confusion and pity. You're killing him, Frank said when Logan went to take a phone call outside. I'm not doing anything to him, I said, wiping down the espresso machine. Yeah, Frank said slowly. That's the problem. 2 months after that night at the club, Logan showed up at the hospital again. This time he didn't wait by the entrance. He came inside, asked for me at the nurse's station, and waited in the family lounge until someone found me. I was in the middle of checking vitals on a post-op patient when another nurse told me I had a visitor. Tell him I'm working, I said. I did. He said he'll wait. I finished my rounds, deliberately taking my time, and when I finally went to the family lounge, Logan was sitting in one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs with his head in his hands. He looked up when I walked in, and the expression on his face was something I had never seen before. Desperation. We need to talk, he said, standing up. Really talk. No more excuses about school or work. Just talk. Okay, I said. I sat down in the chair across from him, put my hands in my lap, and waited. He seemed thrown by my easy agreement. He had probably expected me to fight, to find another excuse. Instead, I just looked at him, calm and patient, and waited for him to speak. I don't understand what happened, he said finally. One day everything was fine, and the next day you were gone. Not physically gone, but gone. And I've tried to figure out what I did, what I said, what changed, but I can't find it. Nothing changed, I said. I'm still the same person. No, you're not. You're distant. You're cold. You used to text me all the time, and now you barely respond. You used to come by the office, and now you won't even have dinner with me. It's like you don't want to be with me anymore. Do you want to be with me? I asked. The question clearly caught him off guard. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? Because maybe I'm trying to be the version of myself that you actually want, I said. The version that doesn't crowd you, that doesn't demand too much of your time or attention. The version that has her own life and doesn't revolve around yours. I never asked you to do that. You didn't have to ask. I stood up, suddenly too tired to keep playing this game. Logan, you're free to see other people. You're free to do whatever you want. I'm not your responsibility anymore. I'm just someone you get coffee from. That's not what you are," he said, standing up too. His voice was rising, and a few people in the hallway glanced our way. "You're my girlfriend. You're supposed to talk to me, to tell me when something is wrong." "Nothing is wrong," I said again. "I'm just prioritizing my career now. I'm going to graduate in 8 months, and I need to focus on that. You have your business. I have my future. This is healthier for both of us." I could see him struggling, could see the frustration and confusion and fear warring on his face. He wanted to argue, wanted to push, but he didn't know what to push against. How could he fight an enemy he couldn't name? "I don't want healthy," Logan said finally. "I want you, the real you. This is the real me," I said softly. "Just a different version. You'll get used to it." I walked away then, back to my patients, back to my work, and I didn't look back to see if he was watching me go. I had spent 3 months orbiting Logan Harrington, making him the center of my universe. Now I was learning how to exist in a different solar system entirely, one where he was just a distant star, visible, but no longer within reach. I finished my nursing program on a Tuesday in May, 8 months after that October night, when my world had tilted on its axis. The ceremony was small, held in a community center with folding chairs and cheap champagne. My mom came, wearing the dress she saved for special occasions, and she cried when they called my name. I walked across that stage with my certificate, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than numbness. I felt proud. "I'm so proud of you, baby," my mom said afterward, pulling me into a hug that smelled like her lavender perfume and hairspray. She had been working as a manager at a department store downtown for the past year, finally making decent money after a lifetime of retail jobs that barely covered rent. "You did this all on your own." "I had help," I said, thinking of the scholarships, the student loans I would be paying off for the next decade, the extra shifts at the cafe that had funded my textbooks. "You had determination," she corrected. "That's all you, sweetheart." Logan had sent flowers to my apartment that morning. White roses, my favorite, with a card that said, "Congratulations. I always knew you would make it." I had stared at that card for a long time, trying to feel something. Anger, maybe, or satisfaction that he was still thinking about me, but all I felt was tired. I left the flowers in their vase by the window and went to graduation without them. The job offer from Boston came 2 weeks later. Massachusetts General Hospital, Emergency Department, a position that paid $15,000 more than anything I could find in Chicago. It was exactly what I had been working toward, the kind of opportunity that could set up my entire career. My mom cried again when I told her, but this time there was worry mixed in with the pride. "Boston is so far," she said. We were sitting in her small apartment in Pilsen, the neighborhood where I grew up. The walls were the same beige they had always been, covered with family photos and a crucifix my grandmother had given her. "It's only a 2-hour flight," I said. "And you're doing well now, Mom. Your job is stable. You have health insurance. You don't need me here anymore." "I'll always need you here," she said. But she smiled. "But I understand. You have to build your own life." I gave my 2 weeks' notice at the cafe the next day. My manager was sad to see me go, but not surprised. "You were always too smart for this place," she said, hugging me goodbye. I worked my final shifts in a kind of daze, going through the motions of grinding beans and steaming milk, knowing that in 2 weeks I would be gone from this city, this life, this version of myself. Logan found out on my last day. I should have known he would. Frank was probably still keeping tabs on me, or maybe someone at the cafe mentioned it. He came in at 7:30, same as always, but this time his face was pale. "You're leaving," he said. Not a question, an accusation. "Yes," I said. I was making his coffee for the last time, my hands steady on the portafilter. "I got a job in Boston. I start in 3 weeks. When were you going to tell me?" "I wasn't sure I needed to," I said honestly. "We haven't really been together for months, Logan. You had to know that. We never broke up. We didn't need to. We just faded." I handed him his coffee, our fingers not quite touching across the counter. "This is a good opportunity for me. I need to take it. I'll match whatever they're offering," Logan said. And there was desperation in his voice again, the same desperation from the hospital. "I'll do better than match. Name your price. Just don't leave. It's not about money," I said. Several customers behind him were staring, trying to pretend they weren't listening. I lowered my voice. "I need to do this for me. I need to build something that's mine. Stay, and you can still do that. I'll make sure you have whatever you need. I don't want you to give me things," I said, and I heard the edge creeping into my voice despite my best efforts. "I want to earn them myself. I want to be somewhere where I'm not just Logan Harrington's girlfriend, where I'm just me. You were always just you," he said. I didn't respond to that. There was nothing to say. He saw me as I was now, distant and professional, and thought that was all I had ever been. He had forgotten the girl who left notes in his pockets, who texted him pictures of funny things, who showed up at his office with lunch. Or maybe he hadn't forgotten. Maybe he just preferred this version, the one that didn't ask for anything. "I have to get back to work," I said. "Good luck with everything, Logan." He stood there for another moment, his coffee untouched on the counter. Then he picked it up and walked out. I watched him through the window, watched him stand on the sidewalk like he was waiting for something, but I didn't go after him. I turned to the next customer and asked what I could get them. My phone rang 17 times that night. Logan, over and over, until I finally answered on the 18th call. "What?" I said. I was packing my apartment, surrounded by boxes and old textbooks. "Why are you doing this?" His voice sounded rough, like he had been shouting or maybe crying. Logan Harrington didn't cry, but then again, I didn't really know Logan Harrington anymore. Maybe I never had. "I told you why, it's a better job." "It's not about the job. You're running." "From what?" I sat down on the floor, surrounded by the evidence of my small life. "There's nothing here for me to run from. You and I are barely even friends anymore. My mom is stable. I don't have any other ties to Chicago. This is just a logical next step." "I'm here," Logan said. "I'm a tie to Chicago." "Are you?" I asked quietly. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're just someone I used to know. Someone I made coffee for every morning." The silence on the other end was so long, I thought he had hung up. Then he said, "Let me take you to dinner. One last time. Please." "Logan, I don't think that's a good idea. Please," he said again, and there was something broken in his voice that made my chest ache. "Just one dinner. Let me say goodbye properly." I should have said no. Should have kept my walls up, maintained the distance I had worked so hard to build. But I was tired, and he was asking, and maybe part of me wanted to see if there was anything left of what we used to have. "Fine," I said. "One dinner." He picked me up 2 nights before I was scheduled to leave. He was driving himself, no Frank in the front seat, and he looked exhausted. We went to a place on the north side, casual Italian, not one of the expensive restaurants he used to take me to. We ordered pasta and wine, and for the first 20 minutes we made small talk about the weather, about my mom, about anything that didn't matter. Finally, Logan put down his fork and said, "Tell me what I did wrong. We've been over this," I said. "No, we haven't. You've given me excuses about school and work and space, but you've never told me the truth. And you're about to leave for Boston, so this is your last chance. Tell me what I did that made you disappear." I took a sip of wine, considered my options. I could keep lying, keep pretending that nothing specific had happened, or I could tell him the truth and watch him try to apologize for something he probably didn't even remember. "You called me suffocating," I said finally. "At your club, with Callahan and whoever else was there. They asked if I bothered you, if it got old having me around all the time. And you agreed. You said I was a little suffocating." Logan went very still. I watched the realization move across his face, watched him try to remember that night, that conversation. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You were there. I was bringing you your tablet. You left it at my place, and you had contracts to review. I was trying to help." I set down my wine glass. The door was open just a crack, and I heard everything, the way they talked about me like I was some kind of pest, The way you laughed and agreed with them. I didn't mean it, Logan said immediately. It was just talk, just guy talk. I was being stupid. You meant it, I said. Maybe not completely, but there was truth in it. And that's fine. I was probably too much for you. Too affectionate, too available, too invested. I understand that now. But I don't want to be with someone who sees my love as something annoying, as something to joke about with their friends. That's not what I see, Logan said, reaching across the table. I moved my hand before he could touch it. I see someone who cares, who isn't afraid to show it. And I was an idiot. I was trying to seem cool in front of people who don't matter. And I hurt the person who does. Past tense, I said. Who did matter? We're done, Logan. We've been done for months. I just didn't want to have this conversation because I knew it would hurt, and I was tired of hurting. So you're just going to leave? Go to Boston and pretend we never happened? No, I said. I'm going to remember exactly what we were. I'm going to remember that I loved you, and you thought I was suffocating. And I'm going to use that to make sure I never make myself small for someone again. Logan's eyes were red. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I love you, he said. I know I didn't say it enough, or maybe I never said it at all, but I do. I love you. That's really sad, I said, and I meant it, because I used to love you too. I used to think you were the most important person in my world, but that girl is gone. I left her outside your office that night, and I can't get her back. I don't want to get her back. So that's it? We're just done? We've been done, I said again. This is just making it official. I paid for my half of the dinner, ignored his protests, and let him drive me home in silence. When we got to my apartment building, he parked but didn't turn off the engine. If you change your mind, he said. If Boston doesn't work out, or if you just want to come home, I'll be here. Don't wait for me, I said. Move on. Find someone who fits into your life better than I did. I got out of the car before he could respond, walked into my building without looking back. I heard him sit there for a few minutes, the engine idling, before he finally drove away. I went upstairs, finished packing, and didn't cry. I had promised myself I was done crying over Logan Harrington, and I kept that promise. Boston was rain and brick buildings and a hospital that smelled like antiseptic and ambition. I found an apartment in Brookline, a tiny studio that cost twice what my place in Chicago had, and I threw myself into work with the same intensity I had thrown myself into school. The emergency department was chaos, exactly what I had wanted, and I was good at it. I knew how to stay calm when everyone else was panicking, how to anticipate what the doctors needed before they asked, how to talk to scared patients and their terrified families. I made friends slowly. There was Jessica, another nurse who had moved from California and missed the sunshine. There was Tom, a resident who had a dark sense of humor that made the worst shifts bearable. We would go out sometimes after work, to bars that served cheap beer and greasy food, and I would laugh at their stories and contribute my own. I was building a life, piece by piece, that had nothing to do with Logan Harrington or Chicago or the girl I used to be. Logan called 3 times in the first month. I answered once, told him I was fine, told him I was busy, told him I had to go. He sent a text on my birthday in September. Happy birthday. Hope you're doing well. I responded with a simple, thank you. He sent flowers at Christmas to my apartment, and I gave them to Jessica because I didn't want them in my space. 4 months into Boston, Logan showed up at the hospital. I was getting off a night shift, exhausted and running on coffee, when I saw him standing in the lobby. He looked out of place in his expensive coat, surrounded by people in scrubs and worried family members. What are you doing here? I asked. I didn't have the energy to be polite. I needed to see you, he said. To see how you're doing. You could have called. You wouldn't have answered. He was right, but I didn't want to admit it. I'm doing fine. I have to go home and sleep. Can I buy you coffee? Logan asked. Just coffee. Then I'll leave you alone. I should have said no. Should have walked past him and taken the train home and collapsed in my bed. But he had flown to Boston just to see me, had waited in a hospital lobby for who knows how long, and something in me softened just enough to agree. We went to a cafe around the corner. the kind of place that smelled like burnt espresso and had mismatched furniture. Logan ordered a double Americano, black, and I almost smiled at the familiarity of it. "How's work?" he asked when we sat down. "Good. Busy. I'm learning a lot." "How's the apartment?" "Small, expensive, but it's mine." We talked like that for 20 minutes, surface-level pleasantries that meant nothing. He told me about his businesses, about a new restaurant opening in the spring. I told him about a difficult patient I had helped save last week. We were strangers making small talk, and it hurt in a way I hadn't expected. Finally, Logan set down his coffee and said, "I miss you. I know I don't have the right to say that, but I do. I miss you every single day." "Logan," I started, but he held up his hand. "I'm not asking you to come back. I'm not asking you for anything. I just needed you to know that." "Okay," I said. "I know that now." He left after that, flew back to Chicago, and I went home and slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, I felt hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and left just the shell. I had thought I was over him, thought I had moved on. But seeing him had brought back every feeling I had buried, every hurt I had tried to forget. Logan came back again 2 months later. This time he brought a ring, a simple band with a small diamond that probably cost more than my nursing school tuition. He asked me to marry him in that same cafe, his voice shaking, his hands unsteady. I looked at the ring, at him, and felt nothing but a deep sadness. "What errors did you make?" I asked him. "What? You said you made errors. What were they?" Logan blinked, clearly thrown by the question. "I didn't appreciate you. I took you for granted." "That's vague," I said. "What specifically did you do wrong?" He struggled, his mouth opening and closing, trying to find words. "I wasn't there for you the way I should have been." "Logan, we haven't been together for over a year," I said gently. "And you still can't name a single specific thing you did wrong. You just know that I left. And you want me back, but you don't actually understand why I left. I called you suffocating," he said desperately. "I said that horrible thing, and I'm sorry." "It's not about that one word," I said. "It's about what that word represented. It's about the fact that you saw my love as an inconvenience. And you still do. You just miss having someone care about you that much. That's not true. Then why are you here? What has actually changed?" He couldn't answer. We sat in silence for a long moment, and then I pushed the ring box back across the table. "You should go," I said. "You should go back to Chicago and move on with your life. Find someone who makes sense in your world." "You made sense," Logan said. "No," I said. "I didn't. And that's okay. We wanted different things. We were different people. But this, what you're doing now, it's not fair to either of us." I left him sitting there with his ring and his regrets, and I walked home through the cold Boston streets, and I didn't look back. 2 years in Boston turned me into someone I barely recognized from my Chicago days. I was confident now, good at my job, respected by my colleagues. I had a group of friends I actually saw regularly, not just people I knew in passing. I had favorite restaurants and a running route along the Charles River, and a life that felt solid, real, mine. Logan still sent messages on holidays, brief check-ins that I responded to with equal brevity. "Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Hope you're well." We were polite strangers, which was exactly what I needed. I noticed the security sometimes. Frank, or men who looked like Frank, lingering near the hospital during my night shifts. At first it bothered me, this evidence that Logan was still keeping tabs on my life. Then I realized they never approached me, never interfered, just watched from a distance. It was Logan's way of protecting me without asking for anything in return. I stopped acknowledging them, stopped caring. If it made him feel better to know I was safe walking to the train at 2 a.m, that was his problem, not mine. The call came on a Tuesday in March. I was at work, in the middle of triaging a car accident victim, when my phone buzzed with a Chicago number I didn't recognize. I ignored it, focused on my patient, on keeping him stable until the doctors could get him into surgery. The number called again an hour later, then a third time. On the 4th call, I stepped into the break room and answered. "Is this Miss Reeves?" A woman's voice, professional and careful. Yes. Who is this? This is Sarah Gonzalez from Cook County Hospital. I'm calling about your mother, Patricia Reeves. She's been admitted to our emergency department. The world tilted. What happened? She collapsed at work. Her coworkers called an ambulance. We're running tests now, but the initial findings suggest a mass in her abdomen. We need you to come in and sign some consent forms for further imaging. I'm in Boston, I said. My voice sounded strange, too high. I can catch the next flight. Tell her I'm coming. Tell her I'll be there as soon as I can. We'll let her know, Sarah said gently. Try not to worry. She's stable right now. I hung up and stood in the break room, staring at nothing. My mom who had been fine the last time we talked, who had sent me pictures of her new apartment, who had been talking about visiting me in the spring, my mom who was supposed to be healthy, who had worked so hard to get to a stable place, who deserved better than this. I found my supervisor, explained the situation through a haze of panic. She told me to go, to take as much time as I needed. I went home, threw clothes in a bag, and booked a flight that left in 3 hours. I was at the airport, sitting at the gate, when I called the hospital back and asked for an update. She's having a CT scan right now, the nurse told me. We should have more information in a few hours. Is she scared? I asked. She's asking for you, the nurse said, which was answer enough. Logan found out within 24 hours. I should have expected it. He still had connections at every hospital in Chicago, still had people who owed him favors. I was at my mom's bedside when Frank appeared in the doorway, looking uncomfortable in the sterile hospital environment. He wants to help, Frank said without preamble. I don't want his help, I said. My mom was asleep, pumped full of pain medication while we waited for the oncology team to review her scans. The word cancer had been used, but carefully, with qualifiers. Likely cancer. Probable cancer. We needed more tests. He's going to offer anyway, Frank said. You know how he is. I don't know how he is anymore. I haven't known for almost 3 years. Frank studied me for a moment, then nodded. He's different now. Thought you should know that. Then he left, and I was alone with my sleeping mother and the steady beep of monitors. Logan came himself the next morning. I was in the cafeteria, forcing down coffee that tasted like chemicals. When he sat down across from me, he looked older, I realized. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before, gray threading through his dark hair at the temples. Don't, I said before he could speak. Whatever you're about to offer, I don't want it. Your mom has stage 3 ovarian cancer, Logan said quietly. Aggressive. The standard treatment protocol here is chemotherapy and surgery, but there's a clinical trial at Northwestern. Experimental treatment with immunotherapy. Better success rates, fewer side effects. I set down my coffee. How do you know her diagnosis? That's private medical information. I have friends who have friends, Logan said. And I want to help. Why? You don't even know my mom. I know you. He leaned forward, his light brown eyes intense. And I know you're going to refuse this because you're proud and stubborn and you don't want to owe me anything. But this isn't about you and me. This is about giving your mom the best chance. I can't afford experimental treatment, I said. I can barely afford the standard treatment. I can. Logan pulled out a business card, slid it across the table. This is the doctor running the trial, Dr. Sarah Wu. I've already spoken to her. She's willing to evaluate your mom, and if she qualifies, I'll cover everything. Treatment, medications, all of it. As what? A loan I'll spend the rest of my life paying back? As a gift, Logan said. No strings, no expectations. Just help when you need it. I wanted to refuse. Wanted to tear up the card and throw it in his face and tell him I didn't need his money or his connections or his guilt-driven charity. But I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't expected. He wasn't doing this to get me back. He wasn't doing this to prove something or win points. He was doing it because my mom was dying, and he had the resources to help, and he couldn't not offer. Loan, I said finally. I'll pay you back, every cent. I don't care if it takes me 30 years. Deal, Logan said immediately. He didn't argue, didn't try to convince me otherwise. He just accepted my terms because he knew it was the only way I would accept it all. My mom qualified for the trial. Dr. Wu was brilliant, patient, kind in a way that reminded me of the nurses who had taken care of my mom all those years ago. The treatment was brutal. 6 months of aggressive chemotherapy combined with immunotherapy drugs that made my mom so sick she couldn't keep down water. I took a leave of absence from Boston, moved back into my childhood apartment, and became a full-time caregiver. Logan paid for everything, just like he promised. Not just the treatment, but the anti-nausea medications, the supplements, the special foods my mom could tolerate. He arranged for a private nurse to come in 3 times a week to help with the medication schedule. He never asked for thanks, never mentioned the money, never tried to use it as leverage to see me. But he was there. Not in my space, not demanding attention, just present in a way that was both infuriating and comforting. He would leave groceries on my doorstep, the expensive kind from Whole Foods with prepared meals that I could heat up quickly. He would send gift cards for food delivery services. Once, after a particularly bad night when my mom had been violently ill for hours, I found an envelope under my door with a note. Cleaning service coming tomorrow at 10. Please let them help. I didn't know how to feel about any of it. This wasn't the Logan I had known, the one who had laughed about me with his friends, who had taken my love for granted. This Logan was quiet, respectful, almost invisible except for the ways he made my life slightly easier. I didn't see him for weeks at a time, but I saw his care in every delivery, every arrangement, every small kindness. 6 months into treatment, my mom started to improve. The scans showed the tumor shrinking, the cancer markers in her blood dropping. Dr. Wu was cautiously optimistic, talking about remission, about life after treatment. I cried in the hospital bathroom, great heaving sobs of relief and exhaustion and hope. It was after one of the worst nights, when my mom had been in the hospital for an emergency transfusion, that I finally saw Logan again. I was in the family waiting room, alone at 3 a.m, staring at my hands. I didn't hear him come in. Didn't know he was there until he sat down in the chair next to mine. "How is she?" he asked quietly. "Stable. They got her blood count up. She's sleeping now." I didn't look at him. "You don't have to be here." "I know." We sat in silence for a long time. The hospital at night had its own rhythm. The soft beeps and distant conversations and the fluorescent lights that turned everything pale and unreal. I was so tired I could barely think, running on caffeine and adrenaline and sheer stubborn will. "Why are you still here?" I asked finally. "After all this time, after everything that happened, why do you still care?" Logan was quiet for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "Because I've spent almost 3 years trying to figure out who I am without you. And I've come up empty every time. That's not a healthy reason to care about someone." "I know. I've learned a lot about unhealthy in the past 3 years. He turned to look at me, and I could see the exhaustion on his face, the weight he was carrying. "I never understood what I had with you. I thought it was just, I don't know, convenient, easy. Someone who cared about me without expecting anything in return. And when you left, I thought I would just find someone else, move on, forget about it. But you didn't. I couldn't, because you weren't replaceable. You were singular, unique, the only person who ever looked at me and saw past all the money and the power and the reputation. You saw me, the actual me, and you loved that person. And I was too stupid and too proud to realize what that meant until it was gone. I finally looked at him. That person you're talking about, the one who loved you, she doesn't exist anymore. You killed her that night at the club." "I know," Logan said, and his voice cracked. "I know I did, and I've hated myself for it every single day since. Hating yourself doesn't fix anything. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm not asking you to take me back or forgive me or pretend like it never happened. I'm just telling you the truth. You asked why I still care, and that's why. Because losing you was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I did it to myself." A nurse walked by, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum. Somewhere down the hall, A monitor started beeping insistently. I was so tired, tired enough that my walls were crumbling, tired enough to be honest. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you," I said. "What you said, what you thought about me, it changed how I see love. It made me afraid of caring too much, of being too much, and I hate that you did that to me." "I hate it too," Logan said, "but I also hate that you're here. Helping my mom, being kind, making it impossible for me to just hate you cleanly. It would be easier if you were still the person who laughed at me. I could write that person off completely." "I am still that person," Logan said. "I'm just trying very hard not to be anymore." We sat there until the sun started to rise, turning the sky outside the windows from black to gray to pink. We didn't talk much, just existed in the same space. Two people who had loved each other once and broken each other badly. When the doctors started their morning rounds, Logan stood up to leave. "For what it's worth," he said, "I'm glad you're here. Your mom is lucky to have you." "She wouldn't be alive without you," I said. It cost me to admit it, but it was true. "She would have found another way. You would have made sure of it." He paused at the door. "But I'm glad I could help. Whatever else happened between us, I'm glad I could do this one thing right." He left, and I sat there watching the sun come up, thinking about forgiveness and second chances, and whether some things were too broken to be fixed. I didn't have answers. I just had my mom upstairs, fighting for her life, and a man who had hurt me trying to make amends in the only way he knew how, and somewhere in the space between those two truths, I was trying to figure out who I was now, after everything that had happened. The girl who loved freely was gone. The woman who loved carefully had taken her place, and I didn't know yet if that woman could ever let someone in again, even if they were begging at the door. My mom survived. 6 months of hell, of treatments that made her wish for death, of days when I thought we were losing her, and she survived. Dr. Wu called it remission, but my mom called it a miracle. She cried when she got the news, and I cried with her, holding her hand in that sterile hospital room while she thanked God and every saint she could remember. "You saved my life," she said to me. But we both knew that wasn't the whole truth. Logan had saved her life. His money, his connections, his willingness to help when I had been too proud to ask. I owed him everything, and I didn't know how to feel about that. The months after her recovery were strange. My mom was weak but determined, going to physical therapy 3 times a week, relearning how to do basic things without getting exhausted. Logan arranged for a private nurse, a woman named Grace who came to the apartment every afternoon to help with exercises and medication management. My mom loved her, talked about her grandchildren and her recipes, and the trip she wanted to take to Ireland. "That man of yours is very thoughtful," my mom said one afternoon. We were sitting in her living room, sun coming through the windows, making everything warm and golden. She looked better, color in her cheeks again, hair starting to grow back in soft gray patches. "He's not my man," I said automatically. "No?" My mom raised an eyebrow, the way she used to when I was a teenager lying about where I had been. "Then what is he?" "Someone who felt guilty," I said. "Someone trying to make up for past mistakes." "Seems like an expensive way to deal with guilt," my mom observed. "Thousands of dollars in medical bills, nurses, physical therapy, all those food deliveries he sent when you were too tired to cook. That's not guilt, mija. That's love. It's complicated. Love usually is." She patted my hand. "I'm just saying, maybe you should talk to him. Really talk to him. Not as someone who hurt you, but as someone who spent months taking care of you while you took care of me." I didn't respond to that, but I thought about it. Turned it over in my mind during the long, quiet afternoons while my mom napped. Logan had been there in the background for 6 months. Half a year of steady, quiet support. No demands, no expectations. Just help when I needed it most. And I had barely acknowledged him. Too focused on my mom and my own exhaustion to really see what he was doing. Logan started coming by more often once my mom was home. Not to see me, at least not obviously. He would stop by to check on Grace, to make sure my mom had everything she needed. He would sit with her sometimes while I went to the grocery store or to the pharmacy. My mom liked him, I could tell. She would smile when he visited, tell him stories about me as a kid, show him pictures from family albums I didn't even know she had kept. He's handsome, she told me one day after he left. And polite. Good manners. Mom, I said, warning in my voice. I'm just saying, it's nice to see you with someone who cares about you. We're not together, but you were. And maybe you could be again. She looked at me seriously. Life is short, baby. I know that better than anyone now. Don't waste time being angry when you could be happy. It's not that simple. It never is, she agreed. But maybe it doesn't have to be as complicated as you're making it. 2 months after her treatment ended, my mom was strong enough to go out. We went to dinner at her favorite Mexican restaurant, the one in Pilsen where the salsa was hot enough to make your eyes water. She ate more than I had seen her eat in months, laughed at the waiter's jokes, looked alive in a way that made my chest ache with relief. I want to go back to work, she announced over dessert. Mom, you just finished treatment. You need to rest. I've been resting for 6 months. I'm bored. She took a bite of flan. Maybe part-time, just a few days a week. I miss people, miss feeling useful. If the doctor says it's okay, I said carefully. I already asked. She said it's fine, as long as I don't overdo it. My mom reached across the table and took my hand. I'm okay, mija. You can go back to Boston now. Back to your life. I don't want to leave you alone. I'm not alone. I have Grace 3 days a week. I have my friends. I have my church group. And you have your career, your apartment, your life that you built. You can't put that on hold forever. She was right, but the thought of leaving made my stomach twist. What if something happens? What if the cancer comes back? Then I'll call you, and you'll come back. But I can't spend the rest of my life, however long that is, being afraid. And neither can you. I did go back to Boston eventually, 3 weeks later, after I was sure my mom was stable. My hospital welcomed me back, slotted me into the schedule like I had never left. My apartment was dusty but intact, my plants somehow still alive thanks to a neighbor who had been watering them. I fell back into my routines, my shifts, my running route along the river. But something was different. I was different. 6 months of being back in Chicago, of being close to Logan again, had shifted something fundamental inside me. Logan and I fell into a pattern. He would text every few weeks, asking how I was doing, how my mom was doing. I would respond with actual information now instead of brief dismissals. Mom started back at work part-time. She's doing well. Got promoted to shift lead. More money, more responsibility. We were friendly, but distant. 2 people circling each other carefully, not sure how to close the gap. Then one Saturday in September, almost 3 years after that October night when everything had broken, Logan called. I have a business dinner tonight, he said without preamble. At the club. And I'd like you to be there. Why? I asked. I was in my apartment, folding laundry, phone on speaker. Because I want to see you. And because I think it's time we actually dealt with what happened, instead of pretending we can just be friendly strangers. I'm in Boston, Logan. I can't just fly to Chicago for dinner. I know. That's why I'm asking you to come next weekend. I'll pay for the flight, the hotel, everything. Just come. Please. I should have said no. Should have kept the distance we had built, the safe space where we could be polite but never close. But 3 years was a long time to carry anger, and I was tired of the weight of it. Fine, I said. Next weekend, but I'm paying for my own flight. Deal, Logan said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. He picked me up from the airport himself, driving the same black car he had always driven. He looked good, I realized with an uncomfortable twist in my stomach. Still handsome, still put together. But there was something different about him. Something quieter. More solid. How was the flight? He asked as we pulled out of O'Hare. Fine. Bumpy landing. Hotel is downtown, near the club. I got you a suite. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, Logan said simply. No strings, no expectations, just a nice place to stay. The hotel was luxury, the kind of place with marble floors and a staff that anticipated your needs before you asked. The suite was ridiculous. 2 rooms with a view of the lake and a bathroom bigger than my entire apartment in Boston. I stood at the window, looking out at the water, and wondered what I was doing here. The dinner was at 8. Logan picked me up at 7:30, and we drove to the club in silence. I was wearing a black dress I had bought specifically for this, simple but elegant, the kind of thing that could go anywhere. Logan was in a suit, charcoal gray, with a dark red tie. "Who else will be there?" I asked as we pulled up to the club. "Callahan," Logan said, and my stomach dropped. "And a few others. Business associates." "Logan, I don't want to see Callahan. I don't want to see any of them." "I know," he said, parking the car. "But I need you there. I need them to see you there. Trust me." I didn't trust him, not really. But I had come this far, and I was curious what he was planning. We walked into the club together, and I felt the memories crash over me. This hallway, that door, the night that had changed everything. Logan must have seen something on my face because he took my hand, just for a moment, a brief squeeze of reassurance before letting go. The private room was full of men in expensive suits, the kind of men I remembered from before. Callahan was there, older and heavier, his cold eyes tracking us as we entered. There were others I didn't recognize, men who looked at me with curiosity and calculation. We sat at the large table, and I felt like I was on display, a specimen to be examined. Dinner was Italian, expensive wine and courses that kept coming. The men talked about business, about deals and shipments, and things that I didn't need to understand. I ate quietly, answered when spoken to, and waited to see what Logan was doing. It was after the main course, when someone made a comment about women, something dismissive and crude, that Logan spoke up. "I want to say something," he announced, his voice cutting through the conversation. The table went quiet, everyone turning to look at him. "About relationships, about what matters." Callahan smirked. "This should be good." Logan ignored him, his eyes on me. 3 years ago, I had something that most men spend their whole lives looking for. I had someone who loved me completely, who wasn't afraid to show it, who made me the center of her world. And I threw it away because I was too proud and too stupid to recognize what I had. "Logan," I started, but he shook his head. "Let me finish." He turned to address the table. "I sat in this club, in this room, and I called the woman I loved suffocating because she cared about me too much. I laughed with you all, agreed that she was too much, too present, too affectionate. And she heard me. She was standing outside that door, bringing me something I needed, trying to help, and she heard every word. The room was completely silent now. Callahan's smirk had faded. She disappeared after that." Logan continued. "Not physically, but emotionally. She became distant, polite, professionally cordial, and I spent months trying to figure out what I had done wrong, never once thinking that the problem was me, that I had taken the purest thing in my life and mocked it for cheap approval from people who don't matter. We matter," one of the other men said, his voice uncertain. "No," Logan said flatly. "You don't. Not compared to her. Not compared to what I lost." He looked at me again, and his light brown eyes were bright with something that looked like tears. The greatest honor of my life was being loved by someone brave enough to show it openly, and I was too much of an idiot to value that until it was gone. I couldn't breathe. The entire room was staring at us, at Logan making this public confession, this declaration that felt too big for the space. "I don't know if she'll ever forgive me," Logan said, his voice quieter now. "I don't know if I deserve forgiveness, but I wanted all of you to know what I gave up, what I destroyed, because I cared more about looking cool in front of you than protecting the woman I loved." Callahan cleared his throat. "Logan, that's very touching, but maybe we should discuss this privately." "No," Logan said. "I should have said this 3 years ago, in this room, when it happened. I should have defended her then. I should have told you all that she wasn't suffocating. She was devoted. She wasn't too much, she was exactly right. And if you can't understand that, if you think caring about someone openly is weakness, then you're the problem." He stood up, tossed his napkin on the table. "Dinner's over. Get out." The men stood slowly, confused and uncomfortable. Callahan lingered for a moment, looking between Logan and me. "You're making a mistake," he said. "The only mistake I made was listening to you." Logan said coldly, "Leave." They filed out, and then it was just us in the private room. Logan and me and the ruins of dinner spread across the table. I sat there, my hands in my lap, trying to process what had just happened. "I'm sorry," Logan said finally. "I know that's not sufficient, that it doesn't change what I did or how I made you feel, but I'm sorry. I've been sorry every day for 3 years, and I'll be sorry for the rest of my life." "Why did you do that?" I asked. "Why did you make that speech in front of them?" "Because that's where I hurt you. In front of them, with their approval, I mocked what you felt for me. So I needed to fix it there too. I needed them to know that they were wrong, and I was wrong, and you were the only one who was right." I stood up, walked to the window. It was raining outside, hard Chicago rain that drummed against the glass. "You can't fix this with a speech, Logan. You can't undo 3 years of hurt with one moment of public honesty." "I know." He came to stand beside me, not touching, just near. "I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm just trying to tell the truth. You asked me once what errors I made, and I couldn't name them. Now I can. I valued pride over love. I chose shallow approval over genuine connection. I made you feel like your feelings were an inconvenience instead of a gift. Those are my errors. Those are the things I did wrong." "You really hurt me," I whispered. "You made me afraid to care about people, afraid to show how I feel. You made me smaller. I know. And I hate that I did that to you. I hate that I changed something beautiful in you and turned it into something you're ashamed of." "I'm not ashamed," I said. "Not anymore. I worked through that. I learned that loving openly isn't weakness, it's courage. And if someone can't appreciate that, that's their failing, not mine. It is courage," Logan agreed. And I was a coward for not seeing it. We stood there in the rain-soaked silence. 2 people who had loved each other and broken each other, and somehow survived the wreckage. I thought about my mom, about what she had said. "Life is short. Don't waste time being angry when you could be happy." "I don't know if I can do this again," I said finally. "I don't know if I can trust you not to hurt me. I can't promise I won't hurt you." Logan said honestly, "People hurt each other. But I can promise that I'll never diminish what you feel again. I'll never make you small to make myself look big. And if I start to, I need you to tell me, to call me out, to make me see it. That's a lot of responsibility. You're the only person I trust to do it," he said. He turned to face me fully. "I'm not asking you to come back to Chicago. I'm not asking you to give up your life in Boston or your career or anything you've built. I'm just asking for a chance to start over, slowly, carefully, to see if we can build something new from the pieces of what we were." I looked at him, really looked at him, this man who had destroyed me and then spent 3 years trying to put me back together, who had saved my mom's life, who had just thrown away his business relationships to defend me. He wasn't the same person who had laughed at me in this room, and I wasn't the same person who had stood outside the door, hearing my heart break in real time. "Okay," I said finally. "Not a relationship. Not yet. But something. Slowly. Slowly," Logan agreed. "As slow as you need." I reached out and took his hand. The first time I had initiated contact in 4 years. His fingers closed around mine, warm and steady, and I felt something crack open in my chest. Not the rush of falling in love, not the desperation of need, just a quiet opening, a door left slightly ajar. We left the club together, walked out into the rain. It soaked through my dress, ruined my hair, made Logan's suit cling to his frame. And for the first time in 4 years, I laughed. Real laughter, not polite or forced, but genuine. Logan looked at me, surprised, and then he was laughing too. "We're going to catch pneumonia," I said, but I didn't move toward the car. "Worth it," Logan said, and he squeezed my hand. We stood there in the rain, in the same city where we had met and fallen apart, and I felt something shift. Not back to what we were, but forward to something new. Something built on truth instead of illusion, on hard-won understanding instead of easy affection. I didn't know what we would become, if we would make it, if the damage was too deep to truly heal, but I knew I was willing to try, and that was more than I had been able to say for a very long time.